Mr. Johnson's in the house.
Canelo.
Good, thank you. Thanks, Michael. Good afternoon and welcome to this special meeting, Public Works and Gain Reduction Committee meeting. I'm joined for the first time, the Honorable Curran Price representing the 9th District and the Honorable Gil Cedillo representing the 1st District, and I just want to welcome you both to Public Works Committee. I'm so looking forward to working with you in partnership with the Public Works family to be responsive and to our constituents, and this is a great bunch, I can tell you, council members, and it's going to be a great ride. I want to first make a few comments on Public Works and how it's the most important function of local government. Public Works encompasses all the basics, underlying facilities and systems that we rely on to conduct our daily businesses. It includes a roadway network that allows you to drive to work and to the grocery store, the pipes that take the storm water to the ocean and wastewater away from your toilet, the engineers that design our public facilities, the inspectors who ensure private contractors don't do shoddy work, and the street lights that illuminate our neighborhoods at night. In addition, Public Works, this committee will now be overseeing and forming policy related to the gang reduction efforts across city lines and building upon the extraordinary successes of the GRID program. Today we'll be considering Mayor Garcetti's 5 nominees for the Board of Public Works. The Board of Public Works is the city's only full-time policy-making board. It's an executive team comprised of 5 members who are selected and appointed by the Mayor of Los Angeles to 5-year terms and confirmed ultimately by the City Council. Board of Public Works Commissioners are the chief administrators of the Department of Public Works, a department consisting of more than 5,400 employees who are responsible for design, construction, renovation, and operation of public projects ranging from bridges to wastewater treatment, plants, and libraries, curbside collection and graffiti removal, maintenance of streets, sidewalks, sewers, street lights, and street trees. You still want to do this? This is the most important boards of the city, and I look forward to hearing from our nominees. And with that, Michael, let's call. We'll call one item at a time. We'll just do item number 1.
Item number 1 is a communication from the mayor relative to the appointment of Mr. Kevin James to the Board of Public Works Commissioners for the term ending June 30th, 2017.
Fantastic, Mr. James. Welcome. Thank you for being here, and thank you for your commitment to our city. And our first time we met when I ran for council, you had me on your radio station, and it was from there. It was just a great working relationship with you, and to see you take a dive into city politics and running for the mayor of Los Angeles. You had an incredible campaign, and to see Mayor Garcetti put his faith, trust, and confidence in you and in your ability to serve. We're looking forward to it. But we do want to hear from you why you like to serve as commissioner, provide a summary of your background, work history, and qualifications, and we'll be asking similar questions to our other Board of Public Works commissioners, and explain how you think your experience will help you as a commissioner.
All right, well, first of all, council member, welcome to the host chair.
That's right, on this side.
Switch places, although we're not in the studio. But thank you for the opportunity. Thank you to you, council member Buscaino, and council members Cedillo and Price. I also would like to open by thanking our predecessors that have sat on this board and worked in Public Works for many years and done the work that has gotten us to the point now where we are poised to take the city, I think, in a great direction. Council member, while you and I go back through familiarity with my media career, I moved to Los Angeles in 1987 to begin what was a legal career that exists even up until today. I'll be leaving my current law firm, where I've been for a number of years, to take this position upon confirmation by the council. As I mentioned extensively during the campaign, my entire adult life has been in the city of Los Angeles. It afforded me opportunities that I'm not sure I would have had in other cities around this country, particularly at the time that I moved to Los Angeles. I love this city. I have been involved in local community and civic activities in one way or another, essentially since I moved here. One of the first things I did, in addition to my career at Gibson, Dunn & Crutcher, was I began volunteering at aid service organizations. In those years, in the late 80s, in my community, we saw a crisis that had the average middle age in our community was 18, 19, 20 years old. So I began volunteering in that community and in the aid service arena, and worked my way up to the point that I was the chairman of the board of AIDS Project Los Angeles, $20 million a year organization, hundreds of employees serving thousands of clients. I mean, as I would argue occasionally during the campaign, and in many ways operates like a much smaller type of a city. It did have a significant budget. We did provide services. We did have to meet that budget. And if we were unable to tighten our belt, we would have to cut back on services, something that you don't want to do for the clients that we serve, particularly in that time in their life. So I was always doing more than one full-time job, it seemed, at the same time. I stumbled into the talk radio career, quite frankly, because of some of the legal work that I was doing, and developed my interest in City Hall in my years at APLA when Mayor Reardon was in office. I was part of an organization that had endorsed his candidacy and had some access and grew familiar with City Hall and found it to be an interesting place, such that I started covering it a bit during my media career. And then I started having candidate forums, which you yourself participated in, and went on a neighborhood council tour. And really got involved in the way that Los Angeles operates. And when you do that, you see the great opportunity that the city has, but you also find areas for improvement. And that's one of the reasons that I stepped into the mayor's race. And while I wasn't successful in winning the mayor's race, obviously, it was an incredible learning experience, an eye-opening experience, and I consider it absolutely a part of my professional career. And certainly a big part of why I'm here today. So now I can let you answer a question if you want to get in one, or I can continue talking about moving into. I mean, radio hosts speak in 15-minute segments, so I might want to warn you about that.
That's fine. Thanks, Mr. James. We are here to address.
I realize there are other nominees.
That's right. Well, let's talk about Public Works.
Okay.
And what do you feel are the biggest challenges facing Public Works today?
One of the things that I focused my campaign on, besides economic development, and I think, Councilmember, that economic development and Public Works actually go together. I'll talk about that in a moment. The second part issue driven of my campaign was infrastructure. Sometimes I would say, to get a rise out of the audience and to even gauge how they feel about the city's infrastructure, I would sometimes tongue-in-cheek say that, if you elect me mayor, I am going to go find that city engineer that knows how to make a manhole cover level with the street. Mm-hmm. Now, I know that with respect to the city engineer who's sitting with us, that he very well knows how to make a manhole cover level with the street. And I, of course, during the campaign, began to study that process. And when I spoke with the mayor, when he informed me about this nomination, he did tell me that we want you to go out and fill manhole covers, potholes, bring them to grade. So I mention that as kind of a long-winded way to say that I think one of the first things that we have to do is focus on street services. The infrastructure of the city is the first thing that Angelenos feel related to the city government. When you leave your home, you get, if you're on private transportation, you're driving on our roads. If you're in our buses, you're on our roads. If you are on our sidewalks, in our alleyways, you experience the urban forestry. So much of what Public Works does is a quality of life issue. And one of the things that I heard, and I went to many of the swearing-in ceremonies for the new council members, not only did I hear what a priority it is for the city during my own campaign and that of my opponents, but without exception, and I attended Councilmember Cedillo's and Councilmember Price's swearing-in ceremonies, infrastructure is and repairing our roads and and cleaning up our neighborhoods is a focal point of what we want to do in Los Angeles. However, as I pointed out during the campaign, it was admitted, and if I remember correctly, Mr. Chair, you admitted this as well. In prior years, our infrastructure has been neglected for many years. And one of the things that I want to do, and something that I bring to the table with my experience and coming from the private sector, is the ability to focus, and with my media experience, to focus our priorities on infrastructure. Because companies that are looking to move to our city, to create jobs in our city, to bring jobs to our city, they're going to see how well our city operates. And if we continue with the second worst roads in America, according to federal highway data, if we continue with the report that Angelenos are spending over $700 each on average to repair their automobiles because of the condition of our roads, if our pavement condition index continues to be at a low C level, then it's going to make it that much harder to continue to bring jobs to our city. And that's how those two go together.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues, and I'll start with Mr. Cedillo for questions.
Well, I don't know if there's anything left to say.
I've got more issues.
Like they said, that young man can talk a lick, they had you in mind. I thank you for your service. I thank you for accepting the opportunity that the mayor has offered. I know that it is a reach and a stretch, but we got to bring the city together. And I think it's in this area, a pothole is neither a Republican or a Democrat or a moderate. And it's in this area where we have probably structurally one of the best opportunities for all of us to come together and to rebuild this city from the street up. And so I look forward to working with you, and I'm very pleased, and thank you for accepting the offer.
Thank you, Councilman.
Mr. Price.
Thank you. Well, I too want to thank you for your service and your commitment. We had a chance to chat a little bit as I
we
did
have
with all the nominees, and we talked about quality of life issues and getting the streets clean and removing the debris and that kind of stuff. Some areas certainly have been impacted greater than others. Others, some areas feel neglected. Some areas appear to be neglected. Just you drive down the streets and you see just how do you address concerns raised that just kind of going along as usual is not really going to cut it anymore? What extra steps or what's your position on the role of Public Works, and again, not just maintaining status quo, but helping some areas sort of catch up in ways that we haven't before?
There are a number of things I want to, as quickly as I can, Council Member, provide to answer your question. First of all, one of the things I talked extensively about during the campaign, we had famously in the primary 42 debates that I participated in all over the city. And there were times that I was, obviously our debates took place in underserved communities. And I would ask those communities, how many more years will you wait before you demand that your community become a priority? And that's something that one of the ways that I want to serve and want to focus on underserved communities is look at areas that relate to Public Works that connect to them most. One way, alleyways. Alleyways affect some districts in the city more so than others. There's a challenge in some districts in the city, and they don't exist in others. However, when we go in to repair alleyways, when we make the argument that we have to make of the economic impact of improving our alleyways, it's not just about the economic impact. It's a public safety argument, because if we allow our alleyways to continue to be ignored, it is a hotbed for crime. They become grounds where people leave mattresses and couches. It becomes a public health issue. And that gives me, as a member of the Board of Public Works, the ability to make the point to other parts of the city why it's beneficial to them if we focus some resources on those aspects in other districts. Now, the issue about how we do better than just maintain. As our Bureau of Street Services is well aware from the report on our streets that they published, the last one I read was back in 2011, but it's consistent with a recent federal study. And that is, if we continue just to maintain our roads, we are never going to be able to solve the existing problems of the roads that are in disrepair, the D and Fs, as you know. So we have to focus, and to focus on the D and F roads. People think, well, if we focus on those roads that grade D or F, well, that doesn't mean that the roads that are B and C, we have very few A's, that the B and C roads are getting any attention. They're getting wear and tear. They have to be maintained as well. And if we don't continue to maintain those roads, obviously, common sense, they become C, D, and F. And the cost to repair them over time grows exponentially. And that's exactly what we face today. That's why when you look at what the real cost is for repairing our roads, we must build in a maintenance cost that hasn't been given the attention that it needs. So it is with that you must communicate across the city how this kind of quality of life benefit has an impact on every aspect of Angelino's lives. It affects our fire trucks' ability on their response time. It affects the LAPD's ability to respond as well. It affects economic growth in the city. It affects quality of life in the city. It affects traffic time in the city. It affects the environment in the city. So that gives me the ability to make the argument that I should have and we should have in public works priority number one.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Price. Mr. James, we don't have yet a report back from Ethics Commission. To the best of your knowledge, do you have any financial investments that would regularly or frequently require you to recuse yourself from voting on board items?
I do not. I have submitted all of my forms to Ethics, and the answer is no. So.
Thank you, Mr. James. Do we have any public comment cards on item number one?
No, we don't.
Fantastic. We have a motion to approve Mr. James to the Board of Public Works. Moved. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Cedillo. So ordered. Congratulations. We'll send this to full City Council for approval.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, council members.
Okay, item number two.
Item number two is a communication from the mayor relative to the appointment of Ms. Monica Rodriguez to the Board of Public Works Commissioners for the term ending June 30th, 2014. And just for the record, her Ethics Commission review has come back as complete.
Fantastic. Thank you, Michael. Ms. Rodriguez.
Just have to rub that into Kevin right now.
Good afternoon. Welcome.
Good afternoon.
Similar question. Why do you want to do this? Qualifications and your experience, and how your prior experience will help you serve on the Board of Public Works.
Thank you. Well, I'm delighted to be here and honored. I've had quite a long history both in and out of City Hall. It started at the ripe old age of 20, starting with Councilmember Mike Hernandez, and it was back in those days that I really identified how City Hall works for the people and how you can utilize city resources to make a tremendous impact in neighborhoods. It was a combination of organizing and leveraging resources that City Hall had to offer to make the tremendous impacts that we were able to do back in those days. From there, I've had a career that led me to public education at the LA Unified School District, working for the president of the board during an unprecedented time of education reform, and then went on to focus on housing issues throughout the state during the peak and trough of the housing market. So I've learned how to work with limited amounts of resources to make big impacts. I've learned how to work with residents across all spectrums in all communities with a diversity of issues, and it is all of those experiences combined with the fact that I happen to have a tremendous affinity and love for the city that I was raised in. I'm a resident of the Northeast San Fernando Valley, and I just am excited at the opportunity to serve my city in this capacity.
Fantastic. Let me ask you if you can share some of your ideas and suggestions how we can modernize public works in moving forward to today's technological age, and talk about more efficiencies in place and how Public Works Department can be more effective.
Right. Well, my big concern and my big focus, I think, is the city of Los Angeles and the residents and business community really expect a lot in terms of customer service, and we have to really provide an opportunity for them to access us in ways that technology provides us today, and we have to catch up with that time. So I think the ability to move to more mobile applications is going to be imperative, to collect the data and identify some of our more chronic areas so that we can be more responsive and identify where we have more challenging areas so that we can have a more comprehensive approach to dealing with those issues is going to be key.
Fantastic. Thank you. Mr. Cedillo. Good. Mr. Price?
And again, thank you for your service and your testimony. But in those areas, and I thank for your ideas about using technology. I think it is a tool that we need to use more proactively. But in some communities, in some neighborhoods, in some households, that is just not an option.
Right.
What do we do to reaffirm, to encourage, to reassure citizens that we can get the bulky items picked up, that we can get the trash cleaned, that we can get the streets repaired, trees trimmed? How do we?
In terms of accessing the city resources?
In terms of accessing and in terms of giving people some faith and hope that the government is working for.
Right. Well, obviously we do have a 311 system as well that might use a slightly older technology, which is the telephone, instead of sending a text message, that we could really help to educate our residents to be more helpful in identifying where these challenges are. So I think that is probably key. I think a public education campaign for some of the areas that have maybe not been as active in reporting some of the challenged areas, because it's really a partnership. Everything that we do is in collaboration with the residents, and that's the most key. That's the biggest part of all of this, is to have that rapport and that relationship with our residents and our constituents, so that we can deliver the best and most effective city services.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. Do we have a motion to approve the appointment of Ms. Monica Rodriguez? Moved by Mr. Cedillo, seconded by Mr. Price. Congratulations, Ms. Rodriguez, and we look forward to working with you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh, sorry, do we have public comment on this? No public comment?
No public.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, item number 3.
Item number 3 is communication from the mayor relative to the appointment of Ms. Barbara Romero to the Board of Public Works Commissioners for the term ending June 30th, 2016.
Ms. Romero, welcome. Thank you for being here, and thank you for your commitment to serve our great city. Similar question, if you can just share with us your skills, your knowledge, your abilities, and your past experience, and looking forward to serving on this Board of Public Works.
I first of all, thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for allowing us an opportunity to share what, our thoughts and our sentiments, and why I know I'm also very delighted and humbled by the mayor's belief that I can play a role in transforming the city of Los Angeles. I grew up in East LA, Boyle Heights, and I didn't realize how neglected some of the infrastructure was there until I left to college and saw the differences on the west side. I went to UCLA, and then when I finished college, I have never moved back to my neighborhood, but I have made a commitment that I was always going to work in my neighborhood. So I have made a commitment because, for me, government has worked for me. And I was raised in a time that government worked for people. So I have, I made a commitment early on that I was one of those people that can help get people to have faith and believe that government can work for people again. And so through my experience, I've worked at LA Conservation Corps doing tree plantings, community cleanups in my neighborhood. And when I was there, a legislator, Senator Polanco said, I want you to do what you're doing here and do it in my office. And I said, but I want to improve the quality of life. How can I do it in government? So I didn't realize that the amazing opportunity that he was providing me, and at that point I realized that that you can change the quality of people's lives through policy and planning. I realized that I never moved back to my neighborhood because there was better amenities and better infrastructure in other neighborhoods. So that's what I would like to see, is play a role in how we can use infrastructure to transform and revitalize neighborhoods, such as my experience working at the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy, that how do you treat water, capture water, treat water, and then at the same time provide a community amenity. And so I'm delighted to kind of come here and be creative and be thoughtful and also be reasonable with all the different demands of all the different departments. So I'm just excited and thrilled for the opportunity, which I was shocked when he asked me, because I told the mayor I really love my job. I love building parks because that's actually something tangible. Mm-hmm. And he said, you can do that same thing in being a public works commissioner. And when I thought about it, I said, actually, that's very true. So,
thank you. Thanks. I'm set over to Mr. Cedillo for questions, comments.
Let me say both to you and to Monica, thank you for accepting the mayor's offer. I think you are incredible role models, and that you are incredible expressions of the great American success story, that you embody the reasons people should have faith in government, and that you are people who I know that my granddaughter would look up to, because I know both of you, I've worked with both of you, and you know no limits or boundaries, and you are bringing that talent and those resources to the state, to the city rather, sorry.
we worked in the state. We worked in the state.
We all get along. Our work when I was at the state on Taylor Yards and creating the right balance there was very, very significant, important to the communities we care about. And so I'm glad that both of you have accepted these posts, because it is, for us, having grown up in Borough Heights, you don't have a sense that you don't have the best infrastructure until you leave. And then you take the drive, and as I talked during my campaign, you go down Beverly, and then at some point, the streets are clean. At some point, they're smooth. At some point, it's a different environment, and yet it's the same city. And each Angelino deserves the same attention from its city. And so, Ms. Price, I think it's for us to figure out the formulas to make sure that the resources are not just equally distributed, but also fairly distributed, and that there is greater need in the city, and we have to pay attention to that so that we have equity and fairness in our service. So thank you for accepting. I applaud you.
Thank you, Mr. Cedillo. Mr. Price.
I too want to thank you for your commitment and service, and for your for a background that demonstrates that you really know how to connect with the community. Your work in urban planning, urban projects, and water-related issues, I think, is interesting, and it's a new opportunity in some of our urban areas. My district has one or two water-related projects, but how do you see kind of expanding services and programs throughout the city, creating new opportunities in ways that we haven't before?
I mean, there's tons of. I had the opportunity to work, that I have some familiarity with Bureau of Engineering and Bureau of Sanitation, so I know some of the programs that they do. So for me, it's an opportunity to assess what have they been doing and what needs to be improved. But I think for me personally, I think just from an outsider looking in, not delving into the issues yet, I think making sure that we look at things from multiple benefits, not looking at things so we're going to solve an issue. We can look at how we can look and make sure we address multiple items so we be more efficient, and we also can address a variety of issues with one item. So I think it's about being creative, and it's about also, with the limited resources, is maximizing those resources. So I think I don't have a clear answer because I haven't dabbled in, but I think that would be my approach, to be creative and figure out how we maximize the resources to provide more services and more programs and better infrastructure as a whole. And to look at other cities and see what other cities are really doing to maximize that.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any cards on item 3, Michael?
No, Mr. Chair, no.
Great, thank you. Give a motion to appoint Ms. Barbara Romero to the Board of Public Works. Moved by Mr. Price, seconded by Mr. Cedillo. Congratulations, Ms. Romero. Looking forward to working with you. Send this out to council.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you. I have to bring you back, Ms. Romero. Again, the same question for the record, Mr. James. We have not had a report from the Ethics Commission. Is there anything, to your knowledge, you have any financial investments that would frequently require you to recuse yourself from voting on board items?
No.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
And it's submitted today.
It's been submitted. Thank you so much. Okay, item number 4.
Item number 4 is a communication from the mayor relative to the appointment of Mr. Michael Davis to the Board of Public Works Commissioners for the term ending June 30th, 2018. And just for the record, the Ethics Commission review is complete.
Fantastic. The Honorable Mike Davis, thank you very much for being here, and also thank you for your commitment to serve our city.
Thank you.
Very similar question. If you can just share with us your experience and how your experience in the past will help you serve on this board.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Cedillo and Mr. Price. Each of you I've had an opportunity to work with, and I've lived a life of public service. I started out with then Assemblywoman Maxine Waters as her district director in South Los Angeles, and worked in the Board of Supervisors with Supervisor Yvonne Brathwaite-Burke as her senior deputy, covering South LA as well. And in addition to the geographic area I had, some of the departments I had, in addition to Martin Luther King Hospital, included the Internal Services Department for the county as one of the board deputies, but equally important, Public Works for the county. And it was there that I understood the beauty of the contribution that Public Works makes to making the city the place that we all feel proud of. And so in Public Works, in the county, I think that I've had the kind of experience that will give me renewed passion to make a difference in the city of Los Angeles. I will say finally, in terms of experience, I also was fortunate enough to serve as a member of the state legislature representing South Los Angeles in the state assembly, where I had an opportunity to work with both of your colleagues in that role.
Right. Share with us your vision, not your vision, but how do you plan on building the relationships not only with the city council, but with all the department general managers? And I see a few of them here today, and thank you for attending this committee.
Sure.
Thank you.
I think that the men and women of Public Works are to be commended for what they have done to maintain the effective and efficient services over the years. I believe that it is important for us to look at systems in terms of how we can remain efficient and effective. It used to be that our main form of communication was basically letters or basically telephone calls, but now we have internet. And so a lot of our requests for service is coming from the internet. We want to ensure in each of our bureaus that that system is effective, that when people email us, that we're able to respond as expeditiously as we are to a person who comes in by foot or calls by telephone or sends a letter. And so I believe very strongly that our men and women in Public Works have done an excellent job, and that I want to work more closely with them so that we can look at various administrative systems that will remain effective tools for us to continue to deliver great services.
Thank you. Mr. Cedillo.
Well, I'm very delighted that Mr. Davis has joined us and that he's been offered this position by the mayor. I think it's a wise choice. You and I know each other for a long time.
Yes, sir.
Much before the internet.
That's right. That's right. That's true.
And, I'm just delighted that you're here because I think your record of service and commitment to your district and to working men and women in this city and the state is well established. And so I just can't tell you how excited I am that he was my seatmate.
Oh, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Is that right?
I used to carry his bags.
Push his button.
That's right.
And so I'm just delighted that you're here with us, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Price.
I too, Mike, am happy to support you for this position. I know, we both were on the campaign trail together. We both saw the issues, problems, challenges in the 9th District. Talk a little bit about the role you see the community playing as a partner in, working with Public Works, working with the government bureaucracy, and, really trying to change the quality of life and impact lives in ways that we need to.
Great. I think that we've done a good job with what we have. I think, unfortunately, the challenge for us is going to be to convince the constituents, the stakeholders, the citizens of Los Angeles, that there's a need for more resources. We have a $1.8 billion budget. Sounds like a lot of money. But when we look at the growth and development that has occurred in Los Angeles over the last decade in terms of the redevelopment of projects and also the development of new neighborhoods, there's a need for more services that, unfortunately, we may not be able to provide as efficiently as we're capable of. We're going to have to convince the citizens that there's a need for more resources. I see that the people of Los Angeles can get involved by being educated by us so that they too can pass that word along, that if we have those resources, we will be the city that America continues to love to hate, because we will be a big city with the efficient, small-time services that people can touch and feel. And so that's what I believe. I would also say that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. I think it was a great project, the 5-year plan for South LA, which inadvertently has been neglected in many ways because of the lack of resources and funding. It costs money to trim trees. You can't just trim them. So I think that we might need to revisit the 5-year plan, which the core of that was collaboration. We have to collaborate between different bureaus and also external departments to public works. And often it might be animal control and other departments. So the 5-year plan will help to engage people, particularly in areas like South LA and perhaps in East LA as well. And so that's how I think we can engage people, by thinking outside of the box, putting together constructive programs that will help us to enhance our effectiveness.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. We have a motion to approve the appointment of Mr. Michael Davis to the Board of Public Works. Moved by Mr. Cedillo, seconded by Mr. Price. Congratulations, Mr. Davis. We look forward to serving with you.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate you. Okay, our fifth and final item.
Item number 5 is communication from the mayor relative to the appointment of Mr. Matt Zappo to the Board of Public Works Commissioners for the term ending June 30th, 2015. At the time of this publishing of the agenda, the Ethics Commission is still pending. However, the background review has been completed.
Fantastic. Matt, welcome, Mr. Zappo, to Public Works Committee. You're no stranger to City Hall, and I'll throw that question out to you. Why do you want to do this?
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I've had the honor and privilege of serving the city for the better part of 13 years. I've worked for now 3 mayors, City Council office, City Attorney's office. I've also worked a number of campaigns, including most recently the Measure J campaign, which would have extended the Measure R transportation revenue stream. Probably the most important experience that I've had that I bring to the board in serving the former mayor as deputy mayor and deputy chief of staff. I was responsible for budget and finance and labor relations during, as I know your colleagues while working in Sacramento, worked through the same deep financial crisis that threatened to devastate public service and public services as we know them. We worked hard. We did everything we could to hold the city together, and we had to triage, and we triaged and we prioritized public safety, as we should have. But as a result, some of our basic city services suffered. I will tell you, though, in building the team, the budget team, to guide us through that very difficult time, I didn't look outside, I looked inside, because this city has some of the most capable professionals. In fact, one of them I took directly from the Department of Sanitation. And this is a great city, and we have great city employees. And I think our opportunity now that we're beginning to emerge from the financial crisis, we're at a point where we're not out of the woods yet, but we can look at beginning to build back those basic city services that our mayor talks about. I'm very excited to do that. We have to do it smart, however. We have some of the best employees anywhere. They want to do their jobs. So my job will what I will bring to the board is, at every case, I will make sure that we're doing things the most efficient and effective way possible so that we can get the maximum amount of public service and the maximum amount of public services to the residents who deserve them, who pay for them.
You've done some amazing work here in City Hall, and I'm looking forward to working with you and the rest of your team here. And I know we do have our work cut out. Explain to us, it's clear that, as Mr. James alluded to, we have the city has the worst streets in the country. And then second, San Jose's, nearly 9,000 lane miles in failed condition. And explain to us your experience with Measure R when we took this committee on the road to educate the community on Mr. Englander's and I's proposal, the street bond measure. We heard, why not use our existing Measure R funds? Can you explain to us why we just can't do that?
Well, Measure R, as you know, Mr. Chairman, is a limited source of revenue. It's only 30 years. And there are ways in which we can use it. We could potentially bond against that revenue on a very short-term basis to make slight improvements to our roads that have failed. The bulk of that money, though, is necessary for ongoing maintenance. I think it is appropriate, as you and Councilmember Englander have brought to the fore, to examine opportunities for additional revenue. As we move forward with that discussion, Measure R is every bit a part of that. We need to upgrade the system, but then we need to identify those funds that can maintain it for the long term. Measure R is part of that discussion, but I also think that we need to look at everything. As far as our role on the board and as the Public Works Bureaus are concerned, it is incumbent on us immediately to show the public that we're going to conduct the business in the most efficient, effective way. I believe there is sentiment out there, as we saw with Measure R and almost with Measure J, which got 66.1% of the vote in Los Angeles County. People are willing to invest if they believe that they're going to get what they're paying for. And I think there's unanimity in the city that we need to invest in our infrastructure, in our roads, and our sidewalks.
Mr. Cedillo.
I thank you for your service. It's quite impressive, and we are pleased that you're with us. We have to continue this discussion about how we can get the support of the public, right? I mean, that's always the response. You go out in the field and then they think, well, there's some other thing we're not doing, we're not efficient enough. Give us some thoughts about how you guys can be more efficient and more effective, and then in a real way, and then also how we can communicate that to the public.
Well, I think number one is technology. We need to look at systems, and we need to look at how we have to look at all of the costs. It is extraordinarily expensive to conduct the work of Public Works, particularly as it relates to street services, and we need to look everywhere we can at cost savings there. We also need to look at, and part of my other job, in my former job, in my current job working for, in this capacity for the mayor, will be working with our employee labor unions. And I think that we share the goal to be able to perform as much public service as we possibly can. And I think that while we work towards controlling employee compensation costs and benefit costs and retirement costs, that is directly related to our ability to most efficiently deliver public services. And I think that that's not an adversarial position that we need to take versus our employees. I think we can work with them to achieve the shared goal of getting the maximum amount of services out on the street. The public sees that. The public sees the steps that we're taking, and I think that would do a lot towards creating the environment for additional revenue.
Mr. Price.
Well, first of all, thank you, Matt, again, for your service. I think your background, your training experience is a perfect complement to your colleagues that you'll be serving with on the board. You've had a rather unique experience as in your duties with the previous mayors and previous administrations. Talk a little bit about this budget issue again. And, is it inevitable that we're going to have to do a bond to create the revenues that we need, create the funds that we need to really do the kind of overhaul on our public works? Is it a short-term strategy, a long-term strategy? How do you see this? Are we going to be going back to the voters again with another bond proposal soon? I mean, how do you think this plays out, short-term, long-term?
Well, I don't think anything is inevitable. There's always various ways to get to goal. But what is clear and what is true is that over the past several years since we entered the financial crisis and the recession, is that there has been a gradual reduction in general fund investment in street services and street maintenance. We relied on the stimulus package, federal ARA, relied on the state bond, which were absolutely critical. Now those have gone away, and now we're left with local tax revenues and general fund revenues, which we, for the first time in fiscal 14's budget, began to build that base back. That's going to maintain where we are right now. If we're talking about actually upgrading the system, we're going to need to be able to identify additional revenues. It doesn't necessarily need to be a bond, but it definitely needs to be on the table as part of options towards a solution. But what is clear is that we need to make a major move forward in the area of street services, in the area of investment in our streets, roads, and sidewalks and alleys, because I think most people agree that the status quo is not acceptable.
Thank you, Mr. Szabo. Do I have a motion to appoint Mr. Matt Szabo to the Board of Public Works Commission? Moved by Mr. Price, second by Mr. Cedillo. Any cards on this, Michael? I assume no?
No, Mr. Chair, no.
Congratulations, Matt.
Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Before we adjourn, any general public comment cards?
No, Mr. Chair.
We don't. Fantastic. Well, boy, let me say this. The mayor knows how to pick them. We have the best and brightest here as we move forward to full city council approval. And I want to acknowledge Mayor Garcetti for bringing these 5 candidates to the forefront and addressing what I think is this most crucial part of public services, our public works. And I want to thank the Public Works family also for being here to support these nominees. So with that, this meeting is adjourned. I'd like to ask our 5 commissioners, not just yet, but to come on back for a group photo, okay? And we're going to post this on the mayor's Facebook page. And tweet this as well. That's right. This meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.